Well, happy, beautiful, amazing day. Dr. Bob Rakowski here, and we have the aptly named Dr. Bob Rakowski podcast. I've got the Dr. DiDomenico, Dr. Fred. You're actually my first repeat guest that I'm interviewing.
Wow.
And, we go into this life, and some of us know that we're spiritual beings having a physical existence. And by the way, I don't know what that number is. Are we 99.999999999% non-matter, meaning spiritual? And how much they actually say if we took of all humanity and compressed our atoms, we could all fit in a sugar cube. And if the Big Bang was smaller than that, we got all the known universe. It's very interesting, right? So, I want to start again with your story, your evolution, because I hadn't heard one like it. And so it's worth repeating again and again.
Well, first of all, I want to say if we can fit all humanity into a sugar cube, does that mean I can eat French fries for lunch today? It doesn't really matter. Hey, we can fit in a sugar cube, then why do I need to watch my diet?
Ed, right? Raw materials. We can talk about that, even though we're not made of much. What we're made of counts. So we don't want to put Kia parts, even though Kia looks better, in a Lamborghini. It's not going to work. You and I want to run like Lamborghinis. So, can you fuel your stuff on garbage? Yeah, fire will burn garbage. It just won't burn very clean.
Yeah, there you go. Nice. Fire will burn garbage. That's nice. That's a new one.
Well, we got that fire, don't we? Well, let's go with this. Nassim Taleb, he talks about, he says, look, if you got a strong enough fire, he says it'll burn through anything. You got a little flame, fire will snuff it out, wind will blow it out. You got a big flame, it eats the garbage and is fueled by the wind. So that's a good segue to you, because that's you. You're on fire. How did you get on fire? And who are you serving with that fire? Let's just go with that.
I would say I remember when I was a kid, like I had visions as a kid, things that would come to me. I still get visions. But I remember being young. And, here's the funny thing, because I'm 64. What's your age?
60. I'm just a kid next to you.
Yeah. So I remember in the 1960s watching Jack LaLanne on TV, on the black and white TV. And I remember being 3 years old in his little gray jumpsuit. Of course, it was gray, probably because it was black and white TV. It could have been blue for all I know. But, and then thinking, I want to be like him when I grow up. And of course, so now I'm an athlete and fit. But what the general public didn't know is he was a chiropractor, right? Like there's innate speaking to us, right?
Well, let's back off for a second. There's a lot of people that haven't heard this term innate. And Dr. Fred, there's chiropractors that haven't heard this word innate. So don't be put off by the technology. What exactly, or the terminology, what exactly is innate?
Well, innate, inborn. What's another word for inborn? It is, I don't know.
We call it innate intelligence.
Yeah. I would say the best word I can think of is inborn. It's already in you.
Hardwired.
Innate, originally in you. It's the original.
Fred, I want to redo my terminology. It's both hardwired and software. It's pre-programmed. And it's actually mostly software, isn't it?
Yeah, for the technology-based people, yeah.
Yep. And by the way,
that's it. So, funny how I remember that like it was yesterday. And that was always my goal, right? And then I just had, I always knew when I was 7 years old, I remember my grandparents were from Italy, immigrants. They barely spoke English. They lived in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I remember playing in the front yard. I was 7 years old, summer day, rolling in the grass, whatever. And then I see my grandfather. I remember this. He was 73, guinea white T-shirt. He used to get up at 4 a.m. because he was a baker. So he worked at the bakery, would bake all the stuff, and then he'd be home by like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And he's sitting there in his guinea white T-shirt, just trying to take a nap, window open behind him, grandmother yelling at him in Italian, which they never taught us Italians, but that's what we were used to, right? And I'm sitting there looking at him, and all of a sudden the whole universe comes into one moment. Like we've had that where you get this epiphany, right? And I thought, what's going through his mind? I wonder what he's sitting there thinking, And I said,
you were like 7, right? Did I hear you right? You're 7 years old, and you're having this very profound mental experience. How wonderful, right? I mean, our kids are the smartest ones. Keep going. I just want to point that out because kids may be the best geniuses around.
I would say it's more to the spiritual. It was a spiritual moment, right? And I thought, when I'm his age, I want the world to be different. And that was it. I said that. I felt it in my body, and then, okay. And then you go run around and climb a tree. But when I became a chiropractor, I found chiropractic. Most people have this great story. Wow, I was playing football and I got injured and I thought I was going to be paralyzed and I went to the chiropractor and I was healed, Or, God, my mom had this back problem and she was disabled. Most people come into chiropractic because of trauma, whether it's emotional trauma or physical trauma. Well, I didn't have any of that. I didn't, here I was pre-med. All I knew was I liked my biology class. And so I figured, well, I'll be pre-med. And it was funny because I went to San Diego State, so that's a business school, right? So I'm living in the dorm with all these business majors that hate biology. I'm a biology major and I hate the business classes, right? So we're in this auditorium and I would sit on the end. I'd write an answer. I had like 20 of my friends and they would all copy that answer all the way down. And then we all got A's in biology, right?
Where did you go to school, Fred? I can't believe they didn't proctor that test a little more effectively, but hey, it happens, right?
State, you got 200 people in an auditorium, they don't know. But anyway, I thought that was funny. So I'm like, well, what do I want to be, And I'm like, I don't know. I don't really believe in surgery. I was raised by an RN. I hated when my mom gave me drugs. So here again, this was inborn, your soul purpose is within you. Psalm 139:16, you saw my days before we were formed. So I teach this in Honor God with Yourself in the 6-step system to heal. It's like you have superpowers that you come in with specifically for your soul purpose. And your whole life is guiding you down that path. You just may not know it, right? So imagine if we're sitting there in the spirit world watching a video like the trailer of our life, and we're like, put me in, God. And then, of course, one of the principles is your humanity would never choose what your divinity chose. Your personality would never choose what your soul chose. Why? Why would I pick an alcoholic father that beat the shit out of me? Why would I have this disability? Why would I have this? So your humanity goes through pain. Your soul celebrates the human journey. Your soul doesn't see it like that in the spirit world. Your soul celebrates your human journey. And there was a great book written by Betty Eady, Embraced by the Light. And then she was in her mid-30s, and I think she had cancer or something. I forget. But anyway, she dies. She's in a hospital. She dies. She was married and had kids. Passes through into the spirit world, heavenly realm, meets Jesus, and Jesus shows her how the world works. And it was a fascinating book. And she went from, I think she was a nurse, and then she came back. Of course, she's like, well, I don't want to go back. No. Like, can I stay here, please? I just want to stay here, right? And she goes back into her body and then becomes a worldwide spiritual teacher. Book becomes a bestseller. And she lectures all over the world as a spiritual teacher. So anyway, it shows her that souls come in for a reason. We tend to travel together. And she tells one story of this very famous rich lawyer, and he comes down the stairs of this big building that he owns, and then there's this homeless person that always is on the side of the stairs. And she talks about that soul chose to do that to remind him every day where he came from and not get caught up in the world.
Wow.
I know. So then you look at, why do people die? Why do I have a kid that died? I can't answer those questions. And many times, and we learn this, through our greatest pain.
Fred, I'm going to pause you for just a second. Then I want to go back to what I think you described as your moment of greatest pain before. The herb of spiritual potency, Gannon herbalucidum, also known as reishi, is infused in the best and cleanest organic coffee in the world, won the award 2 years in a row. this podcast sponsored by bettercoffeeshop.com. Go there, get a box, 100% money back guarantee. So this spiritual evolution, one, I want to make a few comments. Some of the people that I respect the most, that seem to have it most together, and I'll put you in that category, have had similar, they call it spiritual guidance at a very early age. And one was near death. I have had 3 patients that basically were coded and came back, and none of them wanted to come back. The other side was so much better. But interestingly enough, 2 of them were given a choice. Are you done there yet? No. The other one said he just saw the lights, saw the peace. It was so amazing. And then next thing you know, they woke him up. And he's like, why'd you wake me up? And he was bleeding out from a hemorrhaged artery in the abdomen. So it's a small miracle he made it, right? But let's talk about your pain teaching, because that touched a lot of hearts from the feedback I got last time.
Oh my God. I mean, what's, geez, what
we were talking about your wife in the hospital, but you may even go to a different point now. Ex-wife.
Yeah, well, I watched my wife take her last breath, and after that, now I was divorced and then widowed, and I said, I just want to find an amazing woman, and so I knew that to take my life to the next level, I had to spiritually evolve. So I went on this accelerated spiritual journey, and 4 years later, and when I was trying to develop a 6-step system for chiropractic rehab to trademark, the acronym HEALED fell on me. And then I started getting these visions, and it was a spiritual evolution, a 6-step system to discover who God created to be, clear of your past. And when I say clear of your past, it's seeing the purpose to your pain. So by the time we get to A, accept forgiveness for yourself and others, you have evolved so much. You understand yourself more, and then you see the purpose to your pain, and you find the gift. When you find the gift in your pain, you release the pain, and then you can have gratitude. So a perfect example is when the day my wife passed away, she wanted to be cremated. So she wanted her family in the area to come and view her, and she was in our bed. So she passed away about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. By 11 o'clock, we had to call the coroner. So he comes up with a gurney. He's got this big black bag. So I pick her up. And it always reminds me, when you see the movie and they pick up a dead person and they're all limp, it's like, no, it's not like that, man. They get rigid really fast. So, I picked her up. She barely even bent at the waist. It was like a plank. And I put her in the black bag. And then as I zipped the bag up, I stopped right at her chin. And I said goodbye to her. And what I didn't realize was part of me went in that bag with her emotionally. And then I zipped it up, right? And so, that was a pretty painful experience. I can kind of get a lump in my throat right now. However,
I can't believe you did that. I don't know anybody else that's ever done that. I'd like to think I could do it if I had to, but oh my gosh, I don't know that I would even think of that. That seems so final. I don't think I'd ever want to zip up that bag.
Yeah, that was the point. That was the whole point, right?
And but you did it. I don't know how you did it. I don't know anybody else. I literally don't know anybody else that has that story. I don't know anybody else. That is pretty powerful and empowering.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. So then, after I cleared that and was in the HEALED system, I know zipping up that bag is why I can help so many people now. So now when I think about zipping up that bag, like when I put myself in the moment, I can cry, but they're not cries of sadness. They're not tears of sadness. They're tears of, I wouldn't say, of gratitude. But if I put myself into the emotion of that moment, they're tears of the intensity, but they're not tears of sadness. And I'm grateful. I can look back at that. And the majority of the time, like 9 out of 10 times I can talk about it like fact. And then there's that one time, you put yourself in that state like right now, and then it can choke you up a little bit. So So anyway, yeah, now that, man, that was a massive impetus. And now I can look back at, if she hadn't have done that, then I wouldn't have been on the spiritual journey that I was on, and I wouldn't have made the impact, and the impact will continue to make. And so now I see, and then you think about, because before she died, she was taking a bath 3 weeks before she died. She weighed like 85 pounds. I had to carry her from the bed. And we were planning her life celebration service. And so then all of a sudden, we're having a conversation. All of a sudden, she's howling, crying. I'm like, what's wrong? And she said, I don't know if I did what I was supposed to do in this life. And I thought, oh my God, she didn't know her purpose. Now, 93, the stat you can Google, 93% of Americans don't know their purpose. And then you have the Thomas Edison quote, hey, 2 greatest days in your life, the day you come into this life and the day you find out why. Right?
Well, I'm surprised 7% have figured it out, Fred. I'm shocked that it's only 93. And what I see is it's 99 plus. Maybe I'm hanging with the wrong people, but I'm talking to the right guy right now. Okay, 7% know what they're here to do.
Yeah, and I think more than ever today, because people are going online, they left, COVID was, it was sad for some, obviously, but what it did is shifted the mindset where people are like, you know what, I don't want to be in my corporate job. I like working at home. I'm going to start, this isn't really my passion. And I think there's more people coming in looking for greater meaning in their life.
Yeah.
So anyway, before she died, she said, I have to go. She was in a lot of emotional pain, and her son was on the autistic spectrum. So, Asperger's. So he was challenging to raise. And, she said, she said this, she goes, I'm not a good mother to chase, and I'm going to hold you back on your purpose. She goes, so I have to go so you can do what you need to do. I thought, oh my God, talk about a moment. Like, that is her spirit talking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, this is a divine moment, a divine awakening.
Fred, I want to go through the 6 steps of healed, but I want to say I've had other people that were profoundly spiritual. They come up with 6, and I say, God's number is 7. And they say, yeah, in my system, God is actually number 7. Here's the first 6. So we'll preface it with that. What are your 6 steps?
Well, H is honor God within yourself. And that's, goes right back to Genesis, the beginning, the creation, right? Genesis 1. Does it get any earlier than that? Well, it's not Genesis 1:1, but it is Genesis 1:27. We're created in the likeness and image of God, male and female, by the way. So we are spiritual beings first, right? And we're having a human experience. And then, okay, well, let's look at, if we come in with a purpose, and that's where I go through Psalm 139, you saw my days, like your spirit chose all these things, and you think, why the heck would I choose that, Fred? You're crazy. I don't know why. How do I know? I don't know what your purpose is. Why am I only 5'7"? And with my heel lift and a pair of sneakers, I'm 5'8". All I wanted to do was be 6 feet tall and have a brother. I have 2 sisters, and I'm 5'7".
Fred, all I wanted was a brother. I'd love to be 6 foot. In fact, I was interviewed for a job, and they said, would you like anything? I said, I'd like to be taller. I'm 5'7". I always wanted a brother. I had 3 sisters. So I adopted a brother, and I was almost at his bedside when he died of malignant melanoma. Interesting enough. When I say adopted, he adopted me. He was a beast. He could have been, like you, athletic scholar, academic scholar, world class chiropractor, spiritually evolved, right? But wow. So I can't even believe how similar we are. I mean, you sit there, you look 6'4" and jacked, over here. So, all right, yeah. You're 5'7", I'm 5'7". Good for you.
I've had people when they see me online and then they meet me in person, like, you look a lot bigger, you look a lot taller online. You know how many times I've heard that?
I have a beautiful business partner flew down to see me, and she's a former volleyball player and 6'1", and comes up to me and hugs me. It's like, I thought you were taller. I didn't know you were this tall, was my comment back to her. But let's go to E. What's E?
Oh, E. So, well, the one thing that's awesome about H is we go through, let's identify your superpowers. So a superpower would be related. What's that characteristic that you need about you for your sole purpose, right? Hey, if you're an artist, you're very creative, but each gift has another side. It's like a double-edged sword. And so, like, if you're very artistic, well, you're probably not very structured and disorganized. You pay your bills late, tons of late charges. Oh, I forgot to pay that ticket. Now I got a warrant for my arrest, or whatever, people that are very structured get so in their routine, they have no flexibility. People that are very determined are very impatient. People that are very persistent, they tend to run over people, so there's two sides. Now, the problem is, the pain in our life typically comes from the other side of our superpowers. And other people call them faults. They're not faults. They're just characteristics of the other side of the superpower. And it's called the law of polarity. Positive and negative. They're not negative traits. They're just other sides of the superpower. So when I look at, okay, so we're fairly determined. So can I be impatient? Absolutely. Now, because I've gone through healed, I'm far more patient, but I also notice two things. Like, one thing, when I'm going through TSA pre-check and someone's taking their shoes off, taking from like, this definitely their first time. So I go, look, I'll patiently take a breath. You don't have to take your shoes off. It's okay. Do you mind if I go in front of you? Would that be okay? Someone's driving really slow through the parking lot of Whole Foods. You can clearly see there's no spaces. And I see one on the other side. I want to get to that one before someone else gets there. Like those little things, you get totally caught up in your world, So when that happens, I know that's God telling me to breathe. It's okay. I'm still going to get to Whole Foods.
Fred, isn't it amazing that you finally come to that conclusion? Right. One of my mentors says, there's nothing serious going on here. Take a breath, Exactly. And that was one of Dan Millman's things. What should you do right now? Breathe, relax, enjoy.
And when God talks to you, like if you ask God, what do I do? What's he going to say? Relax, breathe. It's okay. One word, chill out, I got this, whatever. So anyway, E is once you understand, oh, this is who I am in my humanity, but I'm really my divinity expressing my level of consciousness could be expressing humanity. And that was Jesus, right? Divinity walking in this physical plane with a divine consciousness. So then E, once you get that, then it's exercise loving yourself and others. And if you can have moments of loving yourself spiritually, like God loves you, oh my God. So it's called exercising, because then what we learn is your brain, this, Bob, your brain only knows what you experience. It doesn't know what's inside of you or what's outside of you. So it only knows the emotion you're experiencing. So that's where it says, if you judge, you will be judged. It's not because you judge and other people will judge you. It's because you judge, you're experiencing judgment. And now you're wiring criticism and judgment and negative emotions into your nervous system. So that's the whole thing. It's like, so what we teach you is not only how to get past that, but then when you want love, the thing is to give it and experience it while you're giving it. You become conscious of the experience. So most people, what are self-sacrifice? Give, I never get back, right? Because you're not experiencing it as you give it. And so it's kind of like if you're giving a Christmas present to your kid or a friend, like, oh my God, I know you're going to love this. And you give it to me, like, hurry up, unwrap it, right? Because you're so excited. What are you experiencing? Your experience is love as you're giving. And so then it becomes the more love that you give, the more you experience. The more experience, the more love you experience. The more love you experience, the more you give love. The more you give love, the more loving you become.
Fred, I'm just having all these flashbacks to all these divine teachers, right? And Wayne Dyer used to say that life is for giving. And then sometimes we just make those letters tighter. Life is forgiving. No, life is for giving. And then life is forgiving. Right. Why? Because guess what? No one's got it all. We got that double edge of that superpower. Personally, I think it's impossible to give true love and not experience it. Those are the best moments of my existence. And it takes different forms, right? Right now I have grandchildren. Do you have grandchildren, Fred? Any grandchildren yet?
No.
Well, there's no joy like that. But I hope someday that you have it if it's in your divine plan. But let's keep going with that. You are one enlightened. Oh, I didn't even know you didn't have kids. Okay.
No, I adopted a boy, but he doesn't want to have kids.
Okay. You could adopt a grandchild. In fact, I think you'd be a great adopted grandfather. It doesn't even have to be biologic. Those beautiful little angels are so special. But back to this healed. So, you found your purpose early. And so what's your avenue to share it with the world? And
I found the emotion that I knew I came here for something to make a difference in humanity. I had no idea what it was. And so then, I'm a chiropractor, right? So I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do. Ellie, the chiropractic school sends me a pamphlet. I'm like, chiropractors are stupid. I threw it away. I'd never been to a chiropractor. Got a second one. Chiropractors are dumb. They don't know anything. Threw it away. Then I got a third one, and I know when I'm praying for direction and something comes to me 3 times, that's God talking to me. So I went into chiropractic school having no idea what chiropractor was. And my interview was, I don't even know what chiropractic is, but God told me this is what I'm supposed to do. And I know I'm supposed to do something great. So I'm coming to school. And then I found the principle. Oh, it's energy healing. No wonder I never liked medication. Right? No wonder I resisted the medicine cabinet because it was.
Let's go there for just a moment. Most people think chiropractors, people come in, they find a lump and they smash it. That was one of my instructors, right? He says, yeah, most chiropractors find a lump and smash it. So we find something that's out and we put it in place, right? But tell everybody about that energy component, because it is so much more than moving a bone in a certain direction. What's the energy? Tell me about that.
Oh, well, first of all, let's go to where we were in the beginning, man. We're energy. We're energy bodies. We're not physical bodies. We're energy bodies. Now, physically in your body starts in the brain, comes to the spinal cord. Spinal cord is a lifeline, right? That carries health and energy through all the nerves to every cell in your body, right? So if your posture is out of alignment, the curves are out of alignment, bones are out of alignment, causes stress to the spinal cord, shuts that energy down. So one, spinal cord is a lifeline. It does 2 things. One, it's why you're alive, right? That is life energy. 2, the amount of energy coming through the spinal cord is going to determine your level of health. So now you got 100%, you're in the state of health. You got less than 100%, your body's breaking down, you're in the state of disease. That's it. You're either in a state of health or a state of disease. Now, that is the greatest secret ever, because energy problems are the foundation of all health conditions. Now you got these people, what about nutrition? What about toxins? Yep, I totally get toxins. We live in a more toxic world. So we're not going to stop that, but I wouldn't want to have 60% energy and a toxic body. And then you look at, well, what about diet? Yeah, I get that, but there's healthy foods that are food allergies. Protein isn't unhealthy, but if your pancreas in your stomach, you don't have good HCl, you don't have good pancreatic enzymes, now you're developing antigens going through, right? That's the antigen antibody. You're developing proteins that your immune system sees as abnormal, and you have an autoimmune disease.
One of my mentors said way back, more people have maldigestion than malnutrition. So you're right. Hydrochloric acid drops, the pancreas is profoundly stressed. People get leaky gut, foreign protein gets in the system, the immune system attacks it. And right now, that's the real pandemic. People don't have enough energy. They don't understand energy. I just did a Zoom live last night. I asked AI, are there principles of health that are universal, hardwired, indisputable, every culture, everything? The first principle of health is energy.
Absolutely.
And life stops the moment you have energy. So, Dr. Fred, I think we're going to have a part 3, because we actually like that. Our audience likes that 30-minute cutoff. So what's your final message, and where can people reach you as we wrap up today?
Yeah, I made it through chiropractic biophysics. 1, you need to be under chiropractic care. Health and life are energy. You need to look at the structure of the spine. You need to find a chiropractor. in your area, hopefully, that takes x-rays and sets you up on a program that can correct your spinal structure. Because any deviation from the structure, you're shutting down the energy in your body and you will create disease. So I wrote a book. It's called The Best Kept Secret to Heal Your Back Pain. It's on Amazon. Best Kept Secret to Heal Your Back Pain. Go check it out. Because as medical studies, medicine has known about this for over 100 years. Secondly, our level of consciousness can create disease. So David Hawkins, right? A map of consciousness. When you get rid of your negative emotions and you release all those emotions, we can talk about that next time, your body begins to heal. Why do people, another reason people get cancers and all these things, why? They're harboring negative emotions. And those, we are emotional beings. So one, get your energy right physically. Two, get your energy right emotionally and spiritually. We are here. Every spiritual being seeks to know their self, their higher self. So whatever process you have to go through, you can go to thehealedsystem.com. Takes you through all 6 steps of healed. And many, many, many people go through massive transformations in their life. If you have another source, all the power to you. So be at your physical best, evolve spiritually, and you're going to have an amazing life. Have faith.
That's why we get along so well. My daily prayer, not necessarily in these words, is I want to align my body, mind, and spirit to empower myself to serve the world better. And we're kindred souls. I love you, brother. You know,
love you too, brother.
We definitely have different mothers, but oh my gosh, you're a beast. I had a guy come in. I'll tell this story as we wrap up. This guy's 80 years old. He's still riding dirt bikes. And he came in. He says, I just came from downtown Houston. They said everything's shutting down in my system. I don't have much time left. I feel like taking a month on a beach in Mexico. What do you think? And this guy's got a firm handshake, and he's still riding dirt bikes. I said, call me after you get back from Mexico. Let's have some fun. You look like you're doing well, right? But, people pull the plug on people's hope, and I don't know what they diagnosed them with, but 80 riding dirt bikes, still loving life. My recommendation is go to that beach. And for all of you, find your beach, go every day. And when the body, mind, and spirit are aligned, our beach is with us. So with that said, I'm Dr. Bob Rakowski, absolutely knowing that we can all be happy, healthy, and successful.